When playing a solo role-playing game with one player character, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this player character is always the main character. However, consider the current situation. A wanderer from afar, from a distant culture, pursues a religious object that was stolen by greedy merchants from Port Deepwater, incurring in the process a vile curse from their deity for failing to safekeep the holy relic. And now this boar man, this Eupaean, decaying as he is, has demonstrated the wherewithal to not only find out where this object is located, but also how to get to it. And as much as the orc in his company is the heroine of her own story, at the moment she is more likely than not a side character, a sidekick to the epic tale of Arcee the shaman, who has, however, now been brutally struck down in the pursuit of his quest. And were it not for his trusty sidekick Torga the orc, would have very likely perished. However, thanks to their jolly cooperation, now they're both on their way to safety after their altercation with an underground sect of hobgoblins worshipping a flesh-hungry fire deity, and in the process freed a group of humans that were intended to be a sacrifice to satiate the hunger of said flesh-hungry fire deity. What are Torga the orc and Arcee the boar man going to do once they've rested up and recuperated? And how have we managed to resist making any pork orc jokes so far? As usual, there's only one way to find out. Hello friends, Anderson here, welcome back to A Lonely Knave, episode 8 already, and goings on have went on, and we have come into possession of some magical gloves that can summon the, what was his name again? The fearsome statue of Brimgor, the keeper of the red flower. So maybe we'll have an occasion to do that in this episode, but first we have an opportunity, I would say, to rest up and recover some hit points, because we are both, Torga and Arcee, reduced to a single hit point, and that is generally not a very good cushion for our, well, continued existence and exploration of this underground space where we still look to uncover a wall that we can break through into this underground vault of this merchant family that has stolen Arcee's holy relic. But besides liking the video, commenting and subscribing to the channel, thank you very much for that, we also have to determine whether, now that we are progressing through this passageway back to this subterranean encampment of the outcasts, who are for one reason or another living in this abandoned system of tunnels and old cellars and ruins. And here it behooves us to ask a question to the oracle, to which the answer is a likely yes, I would say, and that is, will it be safe to rest there? That's a 13 at the highest, which makes it yes, it will be safe to rest there, but there's something that makes it a little less straightforward, and that might be that they aren't the only family of outcasts living there. There is a whole heap of them outcast there, and now that there are these two stalwart, if somewhat beaten up warriors entering, bringing back their long lost, well, possibly not that long, maybe like a day or two, but I think the rest of the camp knows that these were taken by this hobgoblin cult, and they didn't expect to see them again. So as Torga and Arcee enter, sort of leaning on one another and following this scruffy bunch of people that are sort of hustling their child along between them, a lot of grimy faces turn towards them in this sort of underground drained cistern. I think this is what we're looking at here, with a fairly easy access to the surface again, but it is a decidedly not livable condition. They are camped out amongst rubble and discarded refuse from above. They've made do, they've created little lean-tos and shelters for themselves, but overall there is like a congregation of them, and They're now looking at Torga and RC both with wonder, and after the initial explanation of what happened presented by the sort of a patriarch of the rescued intended sacrifice victims, there is something almost like need now in those faces, where the entreaties begin and Torga and RC are accosted by this whole group of outcasts that are now pleading their individual cases and are distracting them from their rest. So let's use one of Torga's, I guess, most pronounced features, which is that she is rather charismatic in an intimidating sort of way, and that is something we should probably do now, where we roll a charisma check for Torga to see if she can bring some order to this whole, not explosive, but definitely very intrusive group behavior now. We roll one die against a DC of 15, we add 6 and see where this goes. Okay, so Torga, through a couple of gruff barked commands and a fairly no-nonsense entreaty letting them know that they're in no state to hear their pleas right now, manages to get this mob to simmer down and pay more attention to the returned to the fold now family, leaving RC and Torga to rest up a bit. I think if this had gone a different way, I would have probably generated like another quest for the two of them stemming from this group here now, but I think for the moment they've kind of managed to stave that off and manage expectations a bit. Now, recuperations, if we can rest up here, and presumably we're being fed by this group as a matter of thanks, even though they don't have much to share. I don't doubt that they will share. We get to recuperate a die 8 plus our constitution modifier, which is rather high for Torga. I think I'll have the constitution modifier for RC because it almost feels a bit like cheating to just copy paste Torga on him. So Torga rolls a die 8 plus 5 to get her hit points back. That is a full recovery. So we are back to 8 current hit points, and RC rolling the die plus 2. And what do we get? Oh, 7. Okay, so he also makes a full recovery. That is rather fantastic. So we have RC at 8 HP as well. And now it's a full evening's rest again, which means that I think maybe RC has another opportunity to badger Torga into trying out the gloves, because I really, really want to try out those gloves and interact with his statue, which we've, I think, established Torga doesn't find particularly wise. So it's a wisdom check. I feel like I should, however, give Torga an advantage here, because she's already expressed her reluctance, and even though RC keeps trying, I think she's getting a bit more impervious to this. So let's roll a wisdom check against a DC of 15, only with a +1 and 2 die 20, which is still a tall order. So let's see how she fares. A 16 and an 18. These dice have a rather pronounced tendency to roll 18s. I'm not sure if that's a flaw in the production or if I'm just in a weird spot right now, die roll wise. I seem to perpetually exist in a state of weird die rolls anyway, so never mind that. So we envision this campfire or, you know, underground makeshift fire pit fire scenario where RC is entreating Torga to give it another try, but Torga isn't having any of it and instead is doing her best to maintain some sort of taciturn silence and not catch too much of the attention of the outcasts that are milling in the shadows and trying to catch her eye and maybe find an inn to plead their case. I guess maybe we can just determine whether it's an uneventful night, yes or no, or shake up, and see whether we just move on or whether something happens during the night that we spend here. 12, yes, it is an uneventful night, but they don't have enough food to provide us with for the journey, which means we're back to traveling with no rations technically. So if we have to rest again and we don't have a friendly camp to fall back on, maybe we only recover like half of the hit points because we're starting to starve a little. I think that might be how we play this. So as we're sent on our merry way with some apologies and some shrugs of, well, we give you something, but we also don't have anything now. We have to go up and scrounge and see what we can find. We set out on our investigation to find this merchant palace underground again. So back to the campaign notebook we go. I'm still playing this sort of as an open-ended investigation. I don't want to have like a set amount of things I want to uncover. I think we'll just figure it out when we see it. So let's roll our 2 die 8 again. The black one goes down and the other one across. I think maybe we loop back in this direction and we find a room that is sort of another one with 2 doors and a passageway through. Let's see what this could be. Our dungeon die to determine what is going on here. 4, that is a discovery, specifically witch. Specifically 3, a special room. 5, an archive. Now, how do we picture this? Is this a fully fledged archive or is this more like a... Well, there are 2 doors, so maybe those 2 doors are hiding an access point to some kind of an archival structure. I'm at a bit of a crossroads here. I have an idea for a non-traditional archive sort of thing and also an option to insert a traditional archive sort of thing behind the door. So let me just ask the question, is this a traditional book kind of archive thing? I roll a 1, so the dice are with me. No, it's not a traditional book kind of thing, and it is a more current affairs useful kind of thing than perhaps the name would indicate. So what we have here is these tunnels also come in here and those doors are hanging off the hinges, half smashed in, half broken. And this far wall, this large sort of domed ceiling wall that is almost like an enormous canvas is at first glance decorated and at second glance a repository of knowledge rather, where the underground factions here, and specifically perhaps the more human factions, use this rather large spot as a negotiation neutral ground kind of place. There's tunnels arriving here from a variety of different directions, and what they've done is they've drawn up a map of the tunnels with iconographic annotations. So we're assuming the reading, writing is not the core strength of whoever is drawing up the underground here, but I think that's what's happening. So there is a map of this nearby webwork of corridors with demarcation lines showing off the current state of whose turf is where, with little gang symbols or maybe even the little icon for the fire deity of the hobgoblins, who have carved out their own little niche somewhere down there that is now up for grabs now that they've been rooted out. But that's what they're looking at. That's what RC and Torga come across, and that's what allows them to make some meaningful progress if they can figure it out. I'm gonna do this as an intelligence roll for Torga to figure out, and since RC is also a bit of a smart fellow, I'll give her advantage. Okay, passing with flying colors, so they can relate this map to where they currently are, and they can also figure out from this map in which direction this merchant quarter is accessible and which gang is currently in control of this. So they have gleaned some information that will allow them to make some of our arbitrary progress here. Maybe I'll handle it in a way where if we take too long in this underground, I'll just use this as a roll under die 6 kind of thing, where the more progress we have, the more likely it is that we find our way there. But for the moment, I'm happy with having found this room. And I think we can press on. 6 down, 7 across. That's like a dead end kind of thing, at least on the surface of it. So we're going off in this direction, and at the end of this we're finding this sort of door closing off on, well, what could be a shaft as well. So let's find out what kind of a room we are dealing with, or if we have to kind of double back here. Dungeon die. That's another discovery on a 5. Which discovery are we dealing with here? 4, geologic. So there is some kind of... Oh, that could actually be a pit. Let's see. That's a 2. That is a pit. Okay, so I got this one right. This is a drop down. So we can, again, probably expect that this door is hanging off the hinges, because I'm assuming these corridors see a lot of action, and finding an actual locked and preserved door is either a matter of a really resistant lock, really terrible traps, or fairly recent construction efforts where some faction occupied a place for an extended period of time and started cordoning it off. But this is just a smashed in door and a drop down, which then Torga and Arcee have to climb, which tells me there is maybe a dexterity check in order. We have spikes and hammer now, which on the one hand makes some noise, on the other hand could give us an advantage. So do we do this? I think so, because rolling with a +2 against a 15 is still a tall order. So let's first determine whether we fall down there. Natural 20. No, we make a graceful descent, and I think now that we roll this high of a result, because initially I was gonna roll now a yes or no question, so are we attracting any sort of interference by, you know, making some noise? But since we're doing so well, I think we're just being very circumspect and very quiet, and we are remaining undisturbed. And so maybe I'm just gonna cordon off a section of this here to signify that we have descended into a lower level, just so I don't have to flip the page already. Now what? 6 and 4, we kind of fall into a crossroads sort of affair. So maybe this is where this shaft connects to. And then we have our pick, but first we also have some discovery at the bottom of the shaft. What's here? 4, another discovery. This time it's a 6, which is a clue. Okay, what kind of clue? 7, knocking. Well, I guess now that we're down on the level where maybe presumably also this merchant quarter vault is located, perhaps this is something as a matter of course that the merchant quarter in general does, where they have these subterranean structures, not always vaults, but sometimes just manufacturers and storage, wine cellars, all sort of utility out of this underground space. And the various activities combined just make a lot of noise and vibration, which points Torga and Arcee into the direction of, okay, we have to go this way, because that's where the sounds are coming from, and they are fairly clearly pointing towards that's the direction of this hub where the merchant families, the rich merchant families, maintain their larger estates, whereas they also have the family house right at the market just as a prestige object, and maybe that's where they originally resided and where they still have like storage space and whatnot. But I feel like the actual family estates now have been moved farther out and maybe into a bit more expansive area of the city, and that's why we're trudging through the underground so far, because this isn't as close to the new town, the market town, as Torga might have perhaps hoped. So I'll just take this as another progress marker. So, you know, now that we track this kind of thing, or that we still track this kind of thing, it just makes sense to convert these clues into getting us closer to our target. Now, I've just given a look, how could we determine that we are at the target? I think obviously if we discover some treasure, and if that happens to be like an artifact or something, then we're, I think, on the money. And otherwise, once we've reached like a few more progress markers, I'd say we also have the entitlement to say, okay, now we're there. But for now, we're not there. So let us see if we have another potential fight or something on our hands, which would give a bit more meat to this dungeon crawl. What kind of room are we looking at? An 8 and a 3. Okay, this is another special one. Some kind of large solid object behind that door by the looks of it. But let's see if there's actually a point to it. So is there any... is this something, or is this just something abandoned? Passive encounter. What's one of them? Okay. A bunch of options. 7 is... oh, it's another event, is it? So whatever this is, we gotta keep in mind that it's passive, so it's not immediately hostile, I'm assuming. This is another 88 roll, so the black one goes first. 72. A wizard is attempting to activate ritualistic markings. Okay, so this is some kind of a pillar and a wizard. So we know they're a wizard, which means the type is already determined. Let's use the NPC generation here. Let's roll up a detail. 6, he's wanted. Okay, he's a wanted wizard. He's down here hiding out. The wanted wizard. I say he, that's actually still up for debate. So let's go with a name here. 4 is Corhane. It's like an 80s child actor to me. Inconclusive on whether this is a he or a she. So 1 to 3, it's a he. It's a he. So Corhane, the wanted. Ritualistic markings on this pillar trying to activate something there. Why is Corhane doing this? 5. Assassinate. Okay. So his goal is to assassinate somebody. Oh, I just see I skipped a column of detail. So what else? He's fearful and wanted. And thus he's come down here hoping to activate this magic standing stone to assassinate somebody. Or maybe this is a because I'm trying to think, like, is this maybe some kind of a passageway that he's trying to access into a sealed off part of this dungeon where this could then be some kind of a more untapped dungeon area and like a tunnel system that is also accessing some important places in the city, but this is something you can only access if you know the right code. And so these ceiling pillars are more like enclosures that can open, and then you can kind of climb up and you're in a different tunnel system that lets you get around the city in sort of a secret network kind of thing. That's what he's trying to access because he is looking to assassinate somebody who can, I don't know, harm him in some way, or by assassinating it. Oh, maybe he's being blackmailed into assassinating this person. Is he being blackmailed? 20, yes, he absolutely is being blackmailed, and there is a serendipitous connection to Arcee's quest, because this also has something to do with the merchant quarter. Does he know how to open this, or is he just trying his best? 17, he does know how to open it. Cool. What's his initial reaction? We understand he's passive, so it's not an immediate attack, but it might still be hostile, so let's see. 4, he's wary. Okay, that makes a lot of sense given his perspective. I think since it's a passive encounter, he's not very perceptive though, so Torga and Arcee are aware of Corhane's presence because he is currently tapping this obsidian monolith that is dominating this chamber, and wherever he taps, little runes appear in a faint light and disappear again, and he's sort of chanting under his breath. And he is at this point at his most vulnerable because he has to concentrate on this, and he's alone in this, and they manage to kind of creep up on him. Now let's see, are Torga and Arcee intuitive enough to not interrupt him and let him open this thing, or are they going to interrupt him and potentially frustrate him? This sounds unfortunately like a wisdom check, but since we do have the shaman there, maybe that represents the wisdom chance of holding a placating hand towards Torga, who is already about to interrupt the wizard. So I'm gonna roll with advantage. Oh, nice. Another 18, I can't help but notice. So just as Torga is about to lay a hand on the wizard, the decaying, wrapped claw of the Upaean of Arcee stays her arm, and they settle back to watch. And before long, cracks of light appear as an outline of a doorway as the stark black material just slides upwards and reveals an opening that the wizard is about to enter into.
Nice work.
And of course, at the sound of Torga's voice, the wizard whirls around and holds the staff in their direction. Is it a... I'm having a hard time picturing. Is it an old wizard or is it a young man? Is it an old wizard? 4. No. Okay, so it's a young, inexperienced, maybe student level or just apprentice level. No, it's a fully... well, actually, if we assume this could be a potential ally or something, we should make him level 1 kind of a person. So this is currently a student level apprentice wizard who gets blackmailed into assassinating somebody in one of the merchant houses, and is of course very taken aback.
Who are you? Who sent you? I'm not in the habit of having anybody send me places, human. But it looks like you opened up a passage for us. Pray tell, where does this go?
And I think we're having another one of our charisma moments where Torga is cranking up the charm, which means she's giving him a look that continues this sentence with, or I will strangle you with that goofy dress you're wearing. And so, presumably he's wearing robes. Torga doesn't think much of ropes, as we've learned in the past. So charisma check. That is not a success. So the wizard is too fearful and too wary of whoever is blackmailing him to share this information right away. Instead deflects and takes a few steps back into this structure, still holding out that staff. There's nothing for you here. You can't come in here. And I think this is where Torga is probably gonna try and grab him out of there to prevent him just sealing himself in. So we're getting the classic one hand in the door frame and the other one goes for the scruff of the rope, presumably dexterity. Against what DC though? I mean, this is presumably almost like an attack roll, so the armor rating of this fellow is probably not amazing. I would say maybe against a 12. So let's see if we can roll a 10 or higher. We most certainly can. We roll an 11, so the scruff is yoinked and the arm is placed in the best sort of you owe me some money kind of way. And we have... Well, now what? This was kind of a hostile action, but Torga is making it clear that she's not looking to beat the daylights out of this fellow, because she is sort of resting that one arm and just holding him there. So maybe we'll underline this with a more charming entreaty.
Don't go anywhere just yet. Don't know what you're doing down here. But depending on where this goes, we might have the same way.
I think I'll allow another charisma check just to see if she can prevent him from like casting a spell at her right now. That's a yes. So I guess the wizard sort of looks down the length of Torga's arm at the overall like armored look and somewhat committed and no nonsense expression, and starts calculating. It's like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I don't have to do this alone if I can bargain here. What do I have to bargain with? And so maybe he's gonna start making things up a little bit and trying to outsmart Torga and Arcee, who is remaining somewhat passive and just looking over Torga's shoulder, trying to keep that side of his face from not being seen, or rather keeping it from being seen. So we have our wizardly fellow spinning a yarn. Like I said, you wouldn't get very far here without me. You need to know how to open the passages. There are many of them, and if you aren't trained if you aren't educated like me, you will not make it past the traps, past the numerous, deadly...
Yes, I get the picture. You're trying to tell us we need you. The question is, do we buy it?
Wisdom check again, I guess, makes sense. And again, with RC there as an advantage. I think she sees right through him in this instance, especially after looking over her shoulder and seeing RC sort of cock an eyebrow and shake his head a little bit. But she probably overall finds him useful enough to humor him and see whether she can in turn capitalize on him for their enterprise. So kind of trying to go along with him for the moment. So after a few seconds of intense staring where the wizard is starting to sweat and trying to figure out whether this orc now believes that she needs him, Torga plays along.
Fine. Let's say we believe you. And let's say we do have the same way, which, incidentally, would be towards the merchant quarter.
And at that point, the wizard has a little facial tick that maybe Torga and RC are again trying to read. Again, a wisdom check. Another 18. Okay, I think I'm gonna retire this die. This is a bit silly. I feel like this has a bit of a bias towards 18s. Anyway, I'll accept the result. That is the sacrifice I'm willing to make. So Torga catches the fact that, oh, now I've got his attention. Merchant quarter. Okay, so that's where he wants to go.
So what did it take for us to enjoy the pleasure of your company, keeping us free from harm?
I think she's just trying to suss out what the wizard is doing down here. So let's see, how would the wizard approach this now? Maybe if we want to learn a bit about the assassination target, we can do action subject and how to construe some kind of a circumstance, how this could have come about. So die 20, die 6, die 8 for a bit of an insight into what he's actually trying to accomplish here. 19 punish, 6 dangers, 1 boldly. Punish dangers boldly. So this is a very aggressive move. This isn't a subtle out of nowhere action. This is, if this assassination happens, it's very easily tracked back to whoever tasked it, because, you know, it's boldly punishing those dangers, and the dangers implying there already is some kind of conflict. So the wizard is in debt to one of the merchant houses and cannot repay the debt, and they are putting the squeeze on, and they are in conflict with another one of the merchant houses, and they are looking to make a statement, and they're looking to have their wizard assassinate, I don't know, is it a member of the family or some kind of a servant? Is it a member of the family? 7. No, it's an associate of the family. So who is this associate? Let's check these common, uncommon, rare, very rare. 14, it's an uncommon denizen of the city. 11, bard, low level. Okay, so the bard of this merchant family has made up kind of a rude poem about the other member of the merchant family, who has already responded to this badly by having sort of the gangs under their control start street brawling, but he's not quite satisfied yet, and he has put the squeeze on this expendable wizard and his measly debt to force him to kill that bard. Is it by any happenstance the same merchant family that RC is going up against? I think this is a kind of an unlikely scenario, so I'm going to add another die 20 and make this a disadvantage roll, so it leans more towards no. Is this the same family RC is up against? 10 is a shake-up. That's the lowest result, which invalidates the question, which means that the wizard is actually blackmailed by the family that RC is up against. I think that's what's happening here. So the wizard is being forced to act against another noble family by the family that RC and Torga are trying to break into the basement of. A merchant family, not noble family, even though they are the nobles of the city. So he's being blackmailed to kill a bard by the target of RC's heist. They sound like a right fun bunch, the way they're acting. That is pretty consistent. So that's something we have to unravel now, and we'll do that next time. So thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you then, and bye for now.